Welcome back. Do Not Disturb, episode 4. It's good to be back too. Caleb looking fresh down there. Matthew's here, looking proportional as ever, dude. And I'm back after a month-long paternity leave. So I never thought I'd say that, to be honest, because I know the last episode that I shot with you guys, we were talking about how I was going to try to take 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks quickly turned into 3 weeks, and then 3 weeks became Christmas and New Year's, and it just was like,
Yeah, dude, like I think that you guys had the baby at the perfect time for having a leave, because like you had the 2 weeks, which everybody just expected, like you're gonna be out for those 2 weeks for sure. And then like Christmas hits and everyone's kind of like out of office anyways. So it was like, sure, just like stay out.
Like I
you know what
worked
I mean?
a couple days then, but it was like no one was really working. So it was nice.
Yeah.
No meetings, right? But yeah, it turned out to be a month. And let me tell you guys, I am feeling incredibly refreshed and ready to go. Like it doesn't feel like I took a vacation, but my mind, I will say this, my mind hadn't been consumed with work for the last month. And if you've kind of like gotten into the habit, I feel like, of just always being on, forcing yourself out of that, like being in your head and more getting more into like just a routine of like almost monotony, is I think sometimes what you really need to spur creativity.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, I'm like waking up, changing diapers, like doing things. I'm busy all day. I'm tired at night, but my brain wasn't like in overdrive like I feel like it usually is. I feel like I'm not an idle person. I'm always thinking about something. But I got to the point probably 2 or 3 weeks into paternity leave where I was just like, all I'm really thinking about is what I'm currently doing. And I feel like that's what made me super refreshed. You know what I mean? I'm feeling now like, oh, the sky's the limit, man. My life feels simpler. It feels like I don't have all that like baggage of I got to do a million things. Now it's like, no, the task at hand is what I have, and that's it. And it feels,
and it's not
really
like
good,
those like that 2 weeks didn't become a month because bad stuff was happening. Like, obviously Kit's healthy, JC's healthy, Link is Link, and he's just incredible, and like he's going to be putting out his first novel any day by the sound of things. He's got a wider vocabulary than me, frankly. It's kind of scary.
I tried counting. So yeah, thanks for saying that, Matthew, because yes, everything is great. I say that I guess I should update everybody that like, yeah, baby so healthy. JC's doing great. This time around, everything was so smooth. And we're so thankful for that. So the first time around, obviously, anytime if anybody's ever had a baby, you understand how that just turns your entire life upside down. It's like, okay, what do we do? Everything is scary. You don't know how to do anything really, and whatever. This time around, it's felt very natural. Everything was pretty smooth, and we've just been trying to get into a routine. I will say, having Lincoln he's 16 months old almost. He's a baby. So it's hard. It's hard in that sense that like me going back to work today, I don't know how JC's really going to do it, right? She's going to be balancing a baby, a 4-week-old with a 16-month-old. Like that's 2 babies, right? That's tough. But to your point, Matthew, we're lucky because Lincoln is like, he's a 16-month-old, but like he behaves like a 2.5-year-old. I'm not, I don't know what is in the water. We got lucky, man. Like he's just a really good kid.
He got my foot water. That sounds weird, but for his brain.
Yeah, for his brain, dude. For his brain. Seriously. It's weird, bro. Like his I tried counting. That's what I was gonna say. I tried counting the other day. He's got more than 400 or 500 words, like legit. And I'm not like, it's every little thing. Like if he came into my office right now, he'd see my little like golf club putter setup. He'd say golf, putter, golf ball. He'd know all the words associated with that. He'd know computer. Yeah. He'd know dad's at work. Like he'd be able to say all that stuff. And I'm like, this can't be normal. I'm not.
It is
weird. It's weird.
It's crazy.
But there's also other things that he just is not, advanced at all, right? So it's just like kids just
right. I remember like Hannah, Caleb, your little girl, she was a talker as well, like from an early point. So
That's been her number one thing that like people say to us is they're just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how much she's talking." And I think now she's getting closer to 3, so it feels more normal for her age to like talk because like when she's around kids that are 3, obviously they're all talking and stuff, but yeah, like when she was the same age as Link, that was the number one thing. We would go on like vacations or to a restaurant and then people would be like, I didn't expect her to like say anything, and she's like in her stroller, but she's like talking.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like the number one thing that we got with her
Well,
for
bro,
sure.
you sent me a video a couple weeks ago. Matthew, you got to send Matthew this video, Caleb. It was the
Okay.
most adorable thing I've ever seen in my life. She read the whole book, word for word. I don't know
Yeah.
what book it
So
was, but she
yeah.
knew
So,
every
War and
single
Peace.
word down to like the detailed, like, yeah, War and Peace. Yeah, thousands of pages. No, obviously it's a book you've read her a bunch of times and she had it
that's it.
memorized, but
Yeah.
like that's
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah, their memories, they're just like, I mean, everybody tells you that. They're like, oh, like your kids are like a sponge. They like hear everything and they just soak it all in. And then like you do that, like you read the same book every night for a few nights, and then you realize like, oh, like she just knows the whole book now. And like she can't read, obviously, but like she can say the entire book. And it's like, it's gotta be like 14 pages or something, it's like it's not
It,
easy. You know
it
what I
was
mean? So
down.
it's
It
like,
was down to like the filler words. Like she knew and to the. She knew the right cadence, what they were in, and all that stuff. Wow.
Amazing.
it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Kids are smart. They are
And
really
then
smart.
my kid
Yeah.
can't really talk, but he's got like back muscles. He looks hench, so it's like the complete opposite.
Heck yeah. Love
Bro,
it.
Leo
And
is a unit. Leo is an absolute unit.
yeah, yeah. And when he is like talking more, dude, like it's crazy how fast it like will start to happen. You know what I mean? Because like I think that's one of the things that we've noticed too is like even if like someone like or a kid isn't showcasing like a certain thing yet, it's like when they do, all the kids catch up
Yeah.
to each other, right? Like as human adults, we all know like the same things pretty much. You know what I mean? And so it's like it's cool because like once it starts, it's just like oh my gosh, like all of a sudden they just can say all of this stuff out of nowhere. And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's wild.
that's beautiful. I
It's
love
wild.
how different kids are. It's just such a fun little thing to witness.
It is.
Yeah, I
It's
think a
super
good
cool.
example of this too. I was reading this book. I think it's called Crib Sheet. I recommend it. It's pretty good because basically she just breaks down like all of these developmental like like they're called what milestones, right?
Yeah.
Like what your kid might be doing or could be doing or should be doing at certain points, and she like backs it up with studies. And one of the ones that she does is language development, and of course it's like if your kid knows this many words by this age, there's sort of like this exponential growth that happens. It's going to happen for every kid regardless. It's just the timing at which it happens is different. So if your kid's speaking a bunch of words at age 1, they're going to be top 5 or top 10% of the speakers at age 3, but by age 6 everybody is basically caught up, right? And so it's a matter of like how long it takes. And an interesting example is people who are bilingual. So if you're speaking two languages in the home, the baby will learn both languages, but they will be slower to speak both of them. And then all of a sudden a day will hit and they'll just start blasting full sentences in both languages. And you're like,
It's so cool.
okay, so you've been listening, right? It's just
Yeah.
you weren't ready to
That's so
talk.
cool.
So yeah, it's sort of just like the floodgates open at a certain point, I feel like, and you see it all. I will say like it's hard not to compare though.
Sure.
Right? Like I don't know. Have you guys felt that? I feel that
Totally.
benchmarking is good in some ways because you're like, is my kid normal? But like, what is normal? And then secondly, it's bad in other ways because it's like I don't want anyone to feel bad if I say my son speaks a lot by the age that he is, and Matthew, for example, you're like Leo doesn't say anything. I'm like, I know you understand that that's normal and not bad, but I think there's people out there that probably are,
Yeah,
I don't know, a
there's
little bit
healthy
thrown off by it.
comparison, but it's only if you're not thinking like in terms of progress and development. It's more just like comparing the journey and the path, and like, oh, my kid's more physically like advanced, your kid's more mentally advanced. Like you were saying, Caleb, they'll catch up. But when I think of comparing, it's more just like, yo, this is crazy. Like how different we all are. Like, hey, even like what we're talking about with like work and progressions in life, that kind of stuff. Even as an adult, as a worker, as a parent, we're always going to be able to compare, but that doesn't mean we need to cast down on ourselves or cast dispersions on anyone. So I think it's a beautiful thing to compare because it gives perspective. But if it's to, a negative detriment, then that's when it becomes a problem. But when Dakota sends me a video of, Lincoln reciting the Gettysburg Address, I'm just like, this kid's amazing. I'm not thinking, oh, Leo's over there like chewing a crayon. Sheesh.
Which Lincoln does too, by the way.
Yeah. I think it's great that you paired that with the Gettysburg Address. That was a really nice play. Yeah. That was a nice play on the name, and also, that was a really nice play.
Wow, I didn't even catch it. I'm so used to his name that like I don't put those things together. That's awesome, dude. Yeah, you're right. And so I wanted to talk today about like seasons of life, and I feel like this actually plays into it really, really well, right? Because I think like the sign of somebody who understands themselves and understands of what they're going through and how it plays into their goals and sort of what they want out of their life is also somebody who's able to self-reflect and understand what season of life they're in, right? Mm-hmm. And that's similar to benchmarking in some ways, right? You're describing, Matthew, like, hey, like you can compare these things, but is it normal? Is it not normal? Or are they just in a season that's not something that they're going through yet, right? With our kids. For us, I feel the same way. I feel like something that in my life has always been true is that I've known when to push harder and I've known when to sit back, right? And rest a little bit. And I think this podcast, obviously, we're obviously just talking. It's not supposed to be super topical necessarily, but something that I've been thinking about a lot on paternity leave is like how good it was for my soul to have that rest, to have that sort of end of year, just sit back and let some stuff happen. So like, I feel like I went into December with like clenched fists, trying to hold on to everything, like sand, basically. Like I'm like, I need this. I need the company to work. I need the clients to be happy. I need my wife to be happy. I need my family to be working or whatever. And like when you're in that season, it's so hard to realize that the sand is like seeping through the fingers, right? And it's not until like you're able to, open the hand a little bit. And nothing broke, nothing fell apart. I didn't lose anything. In fact, Caleb, shout out to you. We had a record-breaking month, right? And in the midst of me being like, I'm out for a little bit. And that, in my mind, I'm like, that was a needed season for me. It was a season of life I needed badly if I'm going to be as effective in this next season as I want to be. So I want to just open the conversation a little bit to that. Like, do you guys think in terms of that? Or do you kind of, because I would say this to some people and I feel like they'd be like, nah, dude, all gas, no brakes. Like there's those people out there that are just like, go, 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 no matter what. And they get themselves to the point of burnout. But for me, I'm like, I have to think of it in terms of season. Now I'm going into January and I'm like, clean slate, man, ready to go at it again. But I don't know if I would be doing that if I didn't let myself have that last season. You know what I mean?
I'm a big advocate for rest. You guys know on previous episodes, I've talked a little bit about like Sabbath and making sure that there's like a weekly time to just like disconnect. Cause I think we need it in life. I mean, I think we need it at a bigger scale, like what you're talking about, Dakota, is it's like, I'm resting as I prepare for the new year. I think we need it on like a weekly cadence where it's like, I take a day to rest. I think honestly, even a daily point where you can start your day, even if it's 5 minutes of just like solitude, rest, prayer, prepping for the day, whatever your like morning routine is. But like, I think we have to have that as human beings in order to like function at our full capacity. And I think anybody that tells you there is zero rest or whatever, either they're eventually going to break down and they're going to realize that they need it, or B, they probably are resting in other ways that maybe like they're just not saying out loud, or they're not part of their Instagram posts or whatever. Right. But I think you have to have it. It's like a need.
Yeah. So. Is there a time in your life where you've kind of like been able to look back and see a long season of whether it was rest? It doesn't have to just be rest, but like maybe a better, more direct way to ask this is like, what season are you currently in? right?
Mm.
If I ask you that question, do you feel like you have an answer? Do you feel like you're aware in your soul what you're learning, what you're going through right now, and sort of like, what you call? Do you have a
Mm.
name for it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't know if necessarily I've got like a name that I could be like, this is the season. But I mean, if I had to sit down and think, okay, where is my head lately and kind of what am I focusing on? If I had to call out that season, I'd say it's right now, at least I feel like it's very much a prep season or like a preparatory season because we have a baby that's going to be due here within the next week to 2 weeks. And I think so for me, I'm thinking a lot about, okay, what is my family going to look like with 2 kids in it? How do I make sure that Tori is going to be good to go for this big day coming up, right? How to make sure things go as smoothly as possible. So for me, I feel like that's kind of my current season is just like, how do I prep for my family, prep for this new year coming up? So yeah, that's where I'm at now. Now, of course, in 2, 3 weeks when the baby's here, that season's going to change. And I feel like it's probably going to
Mhm.
move into a little bit of what you just went through, right? Which is like resetting and resting and figuring out how do I move into this new normal. But yeah, right now I'm definitely feeling like I'm just kind of getting things ready. I'm doing the male version of resting.
Yep.
So yeah,
That's
So
awesome.
good,
yeah.
dude. What about you, Matthew?
So we're in a really interesting season. So we're recording this January 2nd. Tomorrow is Nicole's final day at an office job. So, she's going to be stay-at-home mom, but more important than that, she is going, quote unquote, full time as an artist, as a painter. That's like her
Mhm.
goal. And, you know, thankfully we're in a position where, we're not gonna be like eating steak and caviar every night or anything like that, but we're in a position where we can look at things and say, let's do this. Let's go for it. We can do
Mhm.
this. One, because I know that she has the talent to contribute financially, and two, because she's been in a season for 8 years at her job where she has just felt so unfulfilled. And so
Mhm.
it was the opposite of creative, her previous job. It was just so mundane,
Mm,
menial, data driven, that kind of stuff. It's just not her. And it served a
Mhm.
purpose. But now we're entering the season of like LFG, like let's do this. We've got
Mhm.
this. We've got some
Mhm.
fire under us. We've got a kid we need to provide for. I'm in a job that I'm not just blowing smoke up you guys. Like, I absolutely love my job. Like I woke up early this morning.
Mhm.
Like this is the first day back after like Christmas, New Year's break, and I was like, I'm so ready to get to work. I'm so excited. I got up
let's
at 6,
go.
like cleaned the kitchen, made myself a coffee, started working on some stuff, and I was just like biting, like ready to get going. But
Mhm.
for 8 years, Nicole has not been there. Nicole has been like
Yeah.
surviving in her vocation. And I really love that we're using the term of seasons, because what immediately came to my mind was actually a Fleet Foxes song called I'm Not My Season. And the second half of the chorus says, time's not what I belong to, and I'm not the season I'm in. So what
Yeah.
we are in, whether it's a good or a bad, doesn't define us. So Nicole
Mhm.
has been an office worker part time, and a mom, and finding the tension of that and her like creative passions really difficult to judge. And I'm just like, you are not your season. You are you, and there will become a season where you will be more you, and you're actually able to exercise out of that. So um, it's a really exciting point of time to be in.
I'm so excited for you, dude. I'm so excited for you. Let me
So
say that
cool.
JC went through that as well, and when we were first married, it was. I feel like it probably felt similar to you because on paper it was very risky and scary. Um, and our story was similar. JC, I was going through college. We got married young, as you guys know, and she was working as a secretary for an office job at a ministry. And she was doing things like sending letters, replying to emails, answering phones. And JC is super creative. And I mean, it just, you could see it on her face. She'd come home on her lunch break and we were newly married, and it would just be like, I hate everything. You know, it was kind of like how she felt. Like she just did not have passion, but she went through it because I wasn't making, I mean, I was waiting tables, you know, I was going through college, whatever. So when we moved to Arizona, it was like the promise I made to her was, you know, you're going to do your photography thing. You're great at it. Like, let's just make it work. And she made it work, dude. I mean, like it was scary. But I think that first year she maybe made like 10 or $20,000, you know, and it was like, not, obviously it wasn't enough to pay the bills with my teaching salary too. But then the next year she made more than I made teaching. The next year, you know, it kept flipping, and she was in this like building it, following and getting traction, all this stuff. And it took time, but her love of life completely switched because to your point, it's like she found that fulfillment, or that I wouldn't even say fulfillment, but like she was able to find the passion that she just innately had and apply it to the work that she was doing finally, right? And you guys know how that feels. Like you're sitting here, Matthew, saying like I found that, right? Caleb, you've obviously found that. I've found that. Like we're excited. We want to get going. We want to get to work. We want to do it. But for most of the world, we've said this before, they probably aren't at that place where the passion has lined up with work in the right ways. So I'm super excited for the journey you guys are on, and maybe it'll be really slow, but like it's going to be exciting either way, right?
I think the common denominator here between both of your wives, and I think also like with all of us, to be honest, is that it feels like it's going to be this big scary thing, and it kind of is scary, and there is totally risk attached to it, right? Like I think each of the stories you guys told, it was like right before the breakthrough happened, it was this, I feel kind of scared about this. What happens if this happens? Like, what if it doesn't work? What if we do this? And then it's like, we can't pay this bill or whatever, right? And it's like, that's the mindset that pretty much everybody gets to, right? It's just that there's a group of people that are like, I'm doing it. I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to figure out this thing, and it's gonna work, right? And then there's a group that's like, it's too risky. I think I'm just going to stay here, right? And I think like there can be so much fulfillment, and like success can be on the other side if you're just kind of willing to take the leap and be like, what do I really have to lose here, right? Worst case scenario, this happens, we'll figure it out, and we'll move on to the next thing, right? But it's like so many people just get there and it's like, I'm just going to stay where it's cozy. I'm going to stay where it's comfortable, you know? And I think it's cool to just hear that both of your wives are like, nah, like we're going to do this thing. It's cool. Love it.
And I equate that sometimes to like, it's of course a season, right? It's a season for sure, which is what we're talking about, like sort of like it's the season of like taking a risk and going out there and knowing that it's going to be a little scary, knowing it's going to be hard. But also I think it's a personality trait almost. Like I don't see anything wrong with people who play it safe. I don't. I really don't. Like if the world didn't have the people who can find contentment in their life without always having to like reach for the stars, I think we would have a much different world, right? Like there has to be certain people who are willing to make that risk and build and create things and fail, because you do fail all the time. And then there has to be people who are like, no, I want to like support the builder, but like I also don't want to like be the person that's, you know, potentially losing my house if it doesn't work out, right? And so there's both. But I was talking actually on New Year's Eve with a friend, and she was saying like, you either have it or you don't. And I agreed with that. It was like we were talking about our hometown and sort of like the people who are still there at the hometown, right? And you know, are happy, have loving families, are living good lives. And then those who have like moved away and risked it and tried something new. And it's like you either have that desire to do that thing or you don't. And either way, it's okay. I'm here to say, like, there's so many entrepreneurs are trying to say, man, they're not living up to their potential, or they're not doing, you know, enough or whatever. It's like, no, dude, it's okay. Like if you are happy, if you have found true fulfillment in your life, doing what you're doing, whether it's delivering a post route or building houses or starting a business, you should feel good about the life you've made. You know what I mean? And so that I want to just make that distinction, because I think the season definitely has a play, but also those people who are happy in that desk job that they've worked for the last 8 years, keep doing it, man, and find other ways in your life to live your passion, in my opinion. Like it's not always about quitting the job and going after the thing, right? Let's be clear about that.
Totally. Yeah, I think there's a lot of honor and just like fulfillment that can totally come from any job as long as you're feeling fulfilled. I think the thing to kind of round out, I think the thought that I was starting with there is that if you are the type of person that has that, right? You're talking about the people who has it and don't. If you're the type of person that has it and you come to that crossroads and you're like, I don't know if I can take the risk or not. I think that's that breakthrough moment that I'm kind of speaking to, right? Because if you are already fulfilled, don't go jumping off of a bridge to like go do, well, you know what I mean? Like why?
Yeah.
But if you truly like are like, hey, I'm unhappy, I know that there's something more for me, but I know that there's risk or whatever, right? It's just it's figuring out how do you break through that barrier and kind of get to the next thing if you want to reach that point of being fulfilled.
The people who are happy in their current job probably never get to that crossroads, right? They're probably never they never have to make that decision. But if you get to that crossroads and you don't make the decision, chances are you're gonna be thinking about it, for the next 10 years or whatever it is. And that's gonna lead you to not love the thing you're in even more. And that's the hard part. Because it gets really easy to be like, I should have done that, didn't do it, now I hate my life, right? And that's the part where it's like, that's the entrepreneur's dilemma, right? It's like, how do you kind of make that jump, but do it in a way that you're not risking everything, right? And
this ties in perfect. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Caleb.
I was just going to add to it that like the longer you wait, then the more that you start to tell yourself like, well, now I don't have time, or now my responsibilities are too great in order to take a risk, right? And so it's like, that's why I feel like you see a lot of like people. And I think if you're in your 40s or your 50s and you want to make an entrepreneurial leap, I'm like, go for it. Like you should totally do it, right? But I think there's a lot of people that get to that age and you see like the percentage of those people who do start making big leaps is like drastically smaller because now they've just gone through years and years and years of telling themselves, I don't have time to do that anymore. So it's just,
and they've got the kids, they've got the house, the mortgage, they've got college, for their kid, they've got their 401k, their retirement account, what happens to all of that, right? And so the longer you wait, the more anchors you have tying you into the career that you've been in. Which is not a bad thing unless you're that person that's like, what if I did do that? What if I did,
Yeah.
Because you'll never get rid of that question.
I was going to say, this ties in perfectly to what we were like talking about just before, which is the idea of rest and the sense of fulfillment and what it actually means to rest. So, for Nicole, rest has been almost impossible because when she's coming back from her job, all she's thinking about is art and like starting an art business. She doesn't have that fulfillment, which means she can't actually rest. She like stays up at night, like in bed, just thinking. And thankfully, I'm like, even when I was at a job that I wasn't as happy at, I was still able to just like pass out, which was great.
It's a blessing, dude. I have that same blessing.
So annoyed.
Head hits pillow. Out.
I do not have that blessing.
But
hey, I will say though, to your point, Matthew, that is a good season for a lot of people. Like that's a hard season, but without what she's going through, could she ever have the talent, the skill, in the like vindication or confidence really to say, no, I'm good at this. I've spent the last 8 years grinding away at night, painting these things. People are buying them. They love them. It looks awesome. What if she didn't do that? Right. And she just did her desk job and then rested at night. Right. There, you would feel less confident about making that leap. Right. And so like when people ask, like people who start businesses ask like, what gave you the confidence to do it or whatever, it's because they went through that season that you're describing right now of working their day job, not really loving it, going home and doing something else that they were more passionate about, even though they didn't really have time, energy, and there was a million excuses not to do it, right? Like they still had to do it because that was what made their soul feel alive. Yeah. So it is a season though, like you're saying, but it's a season of lack of rest. Like it's the hustle season. It's the grind season. And it does exist.
I think what we talk about a lot is like when we think about like anti-hustle, we're not saying don't work hard. In fact, we're saying work hard at the right times. And you know, for
Yeah, dude.
Nicole, you know, for the past however many years, the right time has been, you know, in the evenings or on weekends. And she's probably like exhausted. I know she is. Like she's a mother as well, so that, you know,
Mhm.
plays into it too. But if she didn't do that, she would be much more like emotionally exhausted, you know. And there
Right.
is that need and that drive to create, which it supersedes the need to rest in a sense. And so I'm just super excited to see, you know, in this new season that we're entering, like the older like dissatisfaction with vocation sort of like being pushed to the side, and it's okay to be uncomfortable. I think there's a real problem like
Mhm.
in like, you know, millennials, we've gone through a lot. You know, we've gone through like 9/11, like multiple economic crashes, COVID. You know, we were a pretty cursed generation, but I think there's something to be said about like being uncomfortable and being okay with being uncomfortable and letting it push
For
you
sure.
and not just settling into a rhythm of acceptance of your circumstances.
Dude, exactly. Also, we are, while we have been through a lot, I would say we didn't get drafted into a war.
I'm
We
not
didn't, you
besmirching
know,
the
we
golden
didn't.
I
generation.
was just about to go there.
I'm not.
No, I would say that the most traumatic thing that's happened to millennials is freaking technology,
No,
dude. Like the advent of the internet and smartphones and computers, I think is gonna weigh on us way heavier than any traumatizing event. That the reason why those traumatizing events seem so crazy is because it's all we see on our phones. You know what I mean? That's neither here nor there. I do want to say, as for like the season of hustling, I think that's a real, what you said, Matthew, was really good. It's like it's not, we're not saying
Mm,
don't hustle, like we're not saying don't
mhm,
work hard. We're saying work hard at the right
exactly.
time. And if you're working a 9 to 5 that you're not satisfied in, and you're trying to make a change, then yeah, you're gonna have to work hard and hustle outside of that 9 to 5. Otherwise, the change won't happen. For me, when I was teaching, for example, I immediately knew I hated it. I was not a fan of teaching. People who are teachers are saints. I'm not a saint. Didn't work for me. It's as simple as that. I was not able to sacrifice my own passions and desires for the good of the children. Like I couldn't do it for the rest of my life.
What came up, I know.
I know myself well enough to know that, right? Like I had goals for my family that teaching wasn't going to let me do. That being said, what did I do about it? I got my master's at night. After I would go and teach all day, I'd coach golf, and then I'd go home and study for my master's. I completed my master's in 3 semesters with a 4.0. Not trying to brag, just saying like you have to do stuff like that in order to make a change. Was that easy? No, it sucked. I hated my life. I absolutely hated it for a period of like 18 months. And all I did was work, work, right? Now, coaching golf, that was fun regardless. I will say that didn't feel like a job, but, and I didn't
I
have to
always
do that.
forget that you coach. Like I know I remember that you're great at golf. It's like one of those
I'm
hidden
okay.
superpowers you have. But well, yeah, but I mean, you're better than like I would say 95% of the people that I've ever like gone golfing with. And so, like with that said, it's funny. I forget that you were actually a golf coach for a while, which like makes a
Yeah.
ton of sense. So
Oh, it was so
yeah,
fun too because it was like this super non-serious prep school team that like they like we sucked. Like it was just fun, right? And my
yeah,
best
yeah.
player was a girl on the boys team. She was awesome, but it was like that kind of thing. So it was really fun. But my point is that that was the season for me of like intense like grind, and then I got into a job, and that still was really hard for quite a while. And honestly, it hasn't been until I've gone off on my own that I've actually set boundaries for work. That time is necessary, but it's not what your whole life should look like, in my opinion. Because if it is, you're always
Mhm.
at the detriment of something else. If you're constantly in grind mode, you are neglecting other things. Like there's no way to do it all. There's only so much time in a day, and so that's what I mean by seasons. Is like if you really have the chance and the benefit of sitting back for a season and resting a little bit and getting to yourself to the point of what matters to me, what matters to my family, what do I want to look back on in my life when I'm 80 and say I did a good job? Like what are those things? And how do I reorganize my life now, knowing that to go into the next season? And to me, that's what New Year's resolutions are for, right? So the month of December is a great time to do it. But I just think that's a piece of do not disturb. It's like, do not disturb the season I'm in, right? Because
Yeah.
I've got my focus on this season, but you can't do that if you don't know what that season is, right?
Where you're at. Yeah. It's so good,
Takes
dude.
reflection.
Caleb, I know you've talked a lot about, your background in like hotel and that kind of stuff, but do you feel like there was a time either in that or another season where it was kind of the same desire to grow or change that
I was in like figure it out season. Like what do you even want to do with your life season when I was working at the hotel? So I, I mean, like, born and raised Florida boy. You guys can make fun of me all you want. But I grew up and I was like, I think working at resorts would be the coolest thing ever. Like, we've got Disney, we've got Universal, we've got all of the beach resorts. Like, how much fun does it seem like to go to one of those places
more
every single day?
prisons than
That
any
was
other
my,
state.
like,
Yeah.
Hey man, you don't choose where you're born, okay?
I know
You
that's
don't
a
choose
fact.
where
Yeah.
you're born. In
Thank you,
Caleb's
Dakota.
defense.
Thank you, Dakota. But yeah, so like, I mean, I'm thinking like, it would be sweet to like be a manager or like run one of these resorts one day, right? And so at least that was my high school brain. So I go off to college, go to UCF, Rosen College of Hospitality Management, get a job at the Marriott, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what have I signed up for? And so I was in a season of literally just like, I have to figure this out. I got to figure out what to do with my life because I've chosen this path. I'm going to school for this path. I've got the job for this path. And I know right now that this is not what I am going to do. Like, I'm talking to the managers at the hotel and they're like, yeah, like, I've been here 35 years. And, like, I'm just like thinking to myself, like, I don't want that job in 35 years. And I'm just like, I'm interviewing the other managers and like, I don't want to like, I'm not going to say any names or anything, but I'm like talking to the other hotel managers and like some of them legit as I'm interviewing them, like, because side tangent, one of the things I've always done in my careers is I've found people that are further ahead and I've like sat down with them to ask them questions about like, how did you get here? Do you like it? Like, what advice do you have for me trying to get to where you're at? Right. And I would do that with the different managers. And some of the managers I sat down with were like, change
Don't do it. Run.
Don't do it. Right. And it's like, if you like, that's some good advice to like you right now. If you're listening to this and you're like, hey, like, I don't know if this is what I want to go interview a manager, interview someone that's further along from you. And if you're starting to see them tell you get out now, like, it's probably not a great sign. I'll tell you, not necessarily like, don't take that advice from everybody, because that just might be like a person who's just like a butthurt person about life.
Burnt
you know what
out.
I mean?
Yeah.
Burnt out or whatever. But like, talk to people and like see if they're actually enjoying the space that you want to get to, right?
And apprenticeships are so good for that, right? Like it is good that you went through working in that period because like you got to actually see it, right? And that's, I feel like, what's so hard about picking a career. It's like, nothing about it sounds cool, and then you show up and it's like, oh
and you made that decision at like 16 or 18 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so so that, for me, Matthew, to answer your question, that was like a season of like, I just have to switch like what path am I even on right now? You know what I mean? And then like, thank God for my brother. He has always been entrepreneurial minded. And so he was in real estate and stuff and was like, dude, come just like do some stuff with me. And even though real estate wasn't like the path I ended up going down, moving into that world of like, hey, like, you could be a business owner, you could start your own thing, or you could at least be around other people who are doing that, started to open up this gateway of like, whoa, there's so much more that is possible here than just like climbing this ladder every single day. And for me, that was like my eye-opening moment. And I was like, okay. Then I moved into a season of like, now it's time for me to really focus on this whole startup thing and like, let's get around the right people. And then the rest is kind of history there. So yeah.
That's good, dude. And I had the same, I feel like anybody that goes on that entrepreneurial journey, unless they start in like high school, has that same progression. And I describe that moment when I'm telling the story of like how I knew teaching wasn't for me. I would get home from work. JC and I would go for a walk around our apartment complex. And I remember the apartment rent was $1,300 a month. Okay. And in my paychecks every 2 weeks were $900. So I would get the paycheck and I'd spend more. I would spend the whole paycheck on rent and then some of the next paycheck, right? And the reason was because health insurance was taken out of that paycheck, so like there was no money, right? And so I was like, okay, obviously the money doesn't make sense. That's one reason to want to switch. But the second reason, I would get home, we would go on a walk, and you can ask JC, for like 6 months straight, the topic of conversation on our walks was like, there's got to be something I can do, like. I
Mm,
know there's something else. Like, I just picture myself pacing and just being like there's this built up
mm,
potential. Like you just feel the potential energy of I have to break out of the thing that I'm in. Like there's something in me that just has to get out. And
mm,
like that's the only way I can describe it. Even thinking back to it right now, I'm like, man, I still tangibly remember just being like, I'm smart. I know I can do it. There's something I can do, but not knowing anything about what that
mm.
looked like. Right.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the spark right there. That's the you have it or you don't. And for me, it was like I was not satisfied because of that feeling. And that did keep me up at night. That did make me realize. And for you, it's the same, Caleb. You're like, no, 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 no. This isn't it. This isn't it.
Mhm,
I know
mhm,
that.
mhm.
Right. And so it's just, yeah, it's a season though. It's a season of like restlessness and like
Longing.
yeah, just not
Yeah,
longing. Yeah. It's not that you're not
Yeah.
satisfied with your life. It's just that there's
just
like
more.
an itch, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So good. So good.
Well, we're coming
Uh,
up on it here, but it's been a good talk. Caleb, I'm selfishly hoping that you have another Do Not Disturb episode in you before the baby comes, but because I want to spend more
I'm
time talking about it. But
yeah. I'm sure that we probably will. I mean, Hannah, my first daughter, she did come early, so we'll see if this is the same sort of a deal or not. But right now, like I talked to Tori about this last night, where we were pulling up like pregnancy breathing videos, and like I'm sitting on the couch like doing the whole thing, like practicing with her. Yeah, you gotta,
the groan.
yeah, the groan, dude, the groan. You gotta do it. I think this girl called it the J breath because it's like you breathe in and then whoop, you just push right out. That's how it goes. So,
Yeah.
just like that.
The
anyways,
slippy slide.
just like that,
Easy.
2 or 3 of those and baby's
Man,
done.
what do women complain about? Sheesh.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but anyways, I was talking to her about it last night and she's like, I think I still got at least another week. So,
Yeah.
woman's intuition, mother's intuition, we'll
They're
see how it
usually
goes.
right.
That is
Yeah, they're
guaranteed.
usually
Yeah.
right. Well, so Lincoln came a week and a half late. Kit came a week and a half late. So who knows? Who knows, man?
Yeah.
They say sometimes the
Who
second time's
knows?
faster. Was not for us. So
No.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, we should do that.
We'll see. But
Well,
yeah. If not,
best
then I
of
guess
luck,
I'll
dude.
see you guys after she's here.
Absolutely. All right. Well, this has been Do Not Disturb. You know where to find us. We've got a channel and things and all that good stuff. So we'll be around. If this resonates with you guys, leave us a comment, send us a message. Love to talk more. And that's it. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year,
Peace out.
guys.
Happy New Year.